Hello, and welcome to the Anger Management Introduction class. I am Kimberly Swanson, your presenter, and this particular presentation is presented by Purpoz Counseling and Wellness Center. The title of this class is Understanding Anger. The expectations of this class are the following: goals and objectives. Do you know what anger is? The commonality of anger, help and support, the effects of prolonged anger, anger in action, and there is many more. And we'll cover that later on in this course. The purpose of this course is for either court-ordered or personal development. Now, for court orders, the thing that you must know and consider is that you need to confirm with your state and local courts to see if online courses is acceptable prior to enrolling in this class. That's why we gave you this first class free, so you can get an overview and get a feeling of the course and see if it's right for you. And also, you can take it and check it with your court system, your local court system or state courts, to see if this is appropriate for your, if you need this particular certification that is put online and if it's acceptable. And this reason is for personal development. These are for people who just want to learn more about anger and have a better understanding for it. And that's what this particular course is for. Now, the goals and objectives of this course is to define anger, describe anger, physical symptoms of anger, negative side of anger, positive side of anger, holistic overview of anger. Do you have an anger issue? Do you know if you have an anger problem? This free introduction course is just for you, so that you can see if anger management educational training is right for you. The purpose of this class is to have a better understanding of what anger is. Commonality of anger. Many people experience being angry at one point in their life. It is a common feeling. Let's do an exercise. Okay, for this particular exercise, you need a notepad or a piece of paper. And what you need to do is list 5 things that you have been angry about. What made you angry? Try to write down the most recent things that made you angry and jot it down on a sheet of paper. You can pause this video and, while you write down and answer this question. Okay, you're back. Now, the next step is to notice what triggers and what causes you to be angry. So, what you need to do is write down your triggers. So, on that piece of paper, underneath the list of 5 things that make you angry, you need to write down what triggers and what makes you angry. So, what you can do is pause the video and come back when you're done. All right, welcome back. We're going to the next slide. It says the effects of prolonged anger. However, having intensified or extended anger can affect many things or many aspects of your life, such as jobs, relationships, schools, and independence. With jobs, if you get angry with your coworkers and your boss and you don't know how to get along, or you just, don't know how to, cope with your emotions, this can cause a problem. And it can also affect your income, and it can affect you and also your family as a whole. Now, relationships. Anger can affect relationships in many different ways. It can be domestically. It can be publicly, within society, within the neighborhood, and the community, and with many friendships. It can really have a detrimental or harsh effect on relationships as a whole. For instance, if a husband or a wife get angry at each other, that can cause problems. And it can also be between the child and the parent, it's just many dynamics that can be affected within relationships when it comes to anger. The other thing is schools. Now, if you're a high school or student or a middle school student, education is very important. You got to be able to get along with your classmates, with other students and teachers. So you got to learn how to cope with anger, because when you have an anger issue, it can affect you continuing on with your education, such as suspension, getting kicked out of school. It sort of hurts your chances of college and getting, furthering your education. So that's why it's important to get the help that you need. And another thing is, for adults, they can affect schools for adults who are in college or trying to pick up a trade or get more training. That's why it's very important to these educational programs are put in place to help you to learn how to intervene and cope with your anger issues as a whole. Now, the next one is independence. Independence is very important. We all want to have our freedom to do as we please. But when you have anger issues and it's become a problem where it affects other people and the public and society, and it can also turn into a legal issue. And it can go into the judicial system and with the police department. That's why it's important to nip it in the bud before it turns into something that can affect your independence. Let's go to the next slide. It says help and support. See, the beautiful thing about this is that there's help and support for you all. And there's plenty of help. Individuals who wrestle with controlling their anger oftentimes have to go to a behavioral health specialist for help and support. And that's what I am. I'm a behavioral health specialist. I am certified with the National Anger Association. I am a certified anger management specialist. We're just one form of the many help that you can get in the mental health field to get the support that you need. Also, you can go to different counselors. You can go to a psychologist. You can go to a psychiatrist, depending on the extreme cases and the level of your mental, if you have a mental problem or mental, illness, it's good to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to get the help that you need. Some people like to get spiritual help, and this is what Purpoz Counseling and Wellness Center does. We provide educational training and spiritual counseling for those who need the help and the support that they need. And also, some people like to go to ministers and pastors of the church, to get the help that they need. So there's different avenues. There are people out there, there's organizations that you can go to get the support that you need. The most important is that you try to get intervention, to get the help, get the support, and to start thinking and coming up with a better plan in order to improve your life and make a difference. And then it says here, when anger occurs, rage occurs in many settings, such as educational institutions, the workplace, home, and even in the public setting. And so this is pretty much an overview of just explaining exactly the same thing, how anger can affect different aspects and parts of your life. And and that's what we're here for. And it says here, action into anger. Some of the actions that may be portrayed is yelling, hitting, and throwing objects due to an earlier small conflict or misunderstanding. An example of this is road rage. The purpose of this class is to understand what anger is. And see, road rage is a perfect example. Let's say you're driving down the street and then some driver cut in front of you and throwing their brakes and you get really upset. The question is, do you go after that person and do what you want to do to them and get back at them, or you just let that person go? And of course, the best answer is to, to think before you do, to breathe in and breathe out and calm yourself and reevaluate the situation. Before you may want to do certain things that are negative, but it's good to think before you take action upon doing it. An example of this is Medea. I don't know if you all are familiar with Medea. Medea, she had road rages like this. If you watch the movie by Tyler Perry, you'll see that Medea has an anger issue. She gets upset, especially when she goes driving and have people cutting in front of her. She be ready to get back at them. She said, "They do it to me, I do back to them." And she had altercations and get into a lot of trouble and legal issues. That's why Medea had to go to jail. That's why it's very important to think before you do. Learn to have critical thinking skills. Learn to develop better coping mechanisms to keep and prevent you from getting into further trouble. And that's what we're here for. We teach you different calming mechanism through like breathing, meditation. We teach Reiki. We also have meditation courses, learning hypnosis, practicing hypnosis, and yoga is another example of things that can be used to help alleviate the stress of being upset and getting angry at people. You just have to come up with creative ways and thinking outside the box in order to put a stop to it. So let's go into the next slide. It says, what is anger? The answer is anger is a strong emotion. It takes over an individual's ability to have rational thoughts. Anger takes place when the brain is processing information as threatening and causing the brain to react through fight or flight. Anger can be internalized feelings. Now, this is the definition of anger. Let's go to the next slide. It says there are some negative aspects of anger. It says here, distorted beliefs, mindsets of reality, and how anger is formed. An example of this is like, let's say, for example, you're walking down a hall, minding your own business, and then all of a sudden, someone just came up and pushed you or shoved and bumped into you. One of those things. Let's say they just bumped into you. And they walked by and did not say, excuse me at all. You're upset, you're angry, you want to just go up there, push that person back and get back at them and tell them a thing or two. These are some of the feelings and emotion you may feel, but with careful thinking and analyzing things more closely and looking at it from a holistic point of view, you start to realize, hey, it's not even worth it. Is it worth starting an altercation, getting into a fight, arguing over this? Or is it best to just walk away? I got to get to class. I got other things I got to do besides fighting over something so trivial. So sometimes you just have to think things through and use more critical thinking skills, looking at things from a holistic point of view to have a better understanding of what you need to do in order to do the right thing. And then the next one says limited perception, false views, shifting the blame and not seeing from the other person's point of view. See, this is what these sort of go hand in hand, or sort of similar in a way, but different. Limited perception means that person can't see the whole picture. They just see part of a picture. They just see one side to the situation, and or they have a false view. Maybe they felt like the person did it intentionally. they can't see it from another person's view. Maybe the person who bumped into you might not have seen you. Maybe they visually impaired and literally can't see you. Maybe they didn't have their glasses on, or they literally didn't see you and bumped into you. It could be any other things. Or the person might have been let's say hoarse for the day, had a cold and wasn't able to say excuse me, and they just moved on. Another thing is they might have said excuse me and said it under their breath, and you just didn't hear them because you were so angry you didn't even hear them say apologizing. So it can be any other things, it can be, that's how it says, not seeing from another person's point of view. Everything is based on what you see and how you feel, but you are not able to see things from the other person point of view and see that there are other possibilities in the situation that can have you thinking about certain things. You might it could be, it's a lot of things that you can consider. And then shifting the blame, that's another thing, not taking accountability for your own actions and taking it out on other people. These are things that we all got to consider and look at. The other thing is clouded mind. Clouded mind is when you're not thinking clearly. That's when you don't have a clear idea of what's going on. An example, let's say, for example, you just got off from work, you were exhausted, you're tired. You did not want to, someone just came up there, just started arguing and everything, fussing there and everything. You're tired. You don't feel like thinking. You just want to go home, lay down, and go to sleep. And your patience is very short. So instead of just telling the person, hey, I'm tired, you just come out lashing and snapping at the person. So that's an example of clouded mind. Another example is like if a person some drugs is on a drug or something, or abusing drugs, that can cloud your mind sometimes too, and affect the way you think. Or clouded mind can also be due to an illness or health issues, where you don't have a clear view or clear conscience of what's going on, and that can sometimes trigger anger as well. Another one is decreasing IQ. That's when you don't process your thoughts very clearly. You don't take not able to have critical thinking skills, and like I said, think before you do. Instead, you just react and don't use the critical thinking skills that's needed in order to make the best possible decision in your life. And then the next one is emotional and mental weakness. Yes. Life can throw you many punches, and sometimes when you are going through some issues in your life, that can cause you to be angry. Like, for example, you lose a loved one, people react to the situation totally different. You might if you suffer from grief and you lost a loved one person may want to withhold their emotions, internalize their emotions, and they go through a depression, they get quiet, don't want to be bothered and everything. That's one way a person may cope with this situation. Whereas another person, when they lose a loved one, they're angry with the world, they're mad, they want to just come out lashing at the world. And that's another example of anger. One person internalized their anger and being upset. The other person bring their anger outward, and have it externally. So these are examples of some of the ways that people, deal and cope with their anger. And both of them can be quite negative. Internalizing can be bad, and also externalizing your anger can be bad. Those extreme cases can be very detrimental. So the last one is anger hurts and affects others. That's the biggest point that we need to realize. Sometimes some people can be very self-absorbed and only can think about self and how things affect them. But you got to have compassion and be able to see how things, your actions and how you do things affect others. Sometimes you have to go beyond how you feel and see what the other person is feeling. And understanding that when you lash out and hurt others, it can be a negative effect. It can cause a lot of problems, in different situations and circumstances. So let's go on to the next slide. Anger description. Anger is an emotion with levels and ranges of mild agitation to rage. Like I said before, some people handle anger mildly. It takes a lot for them to get angry. But whereas some people, it don't take much to make them angry. They go out into a rage. So it's very important to understand what levels of anger you have. And sometimes, it could be different situations that can make you angry. Each person is different. Each person is unique. So it's good to know what your levels of anger is, and whether it's mild or range, or even somewhere in between. It says here, anger can be verbalized and also shown through action. Now we went over that, some of the things that people do, the yelling, the screaming, and the pushing and the shoving. Those are actions that people take when they're upset and angry. And even through body language, such as rolling the eyes, glaring at a person, flaring nose, these are facial expressions, gritting teeth, some of the examples of a person getting angry and upset, and how to use it through facial features, through facial expressions, not features, but expressions. And anger can be internalized negatively through emotions. And like I said, sometimes when a person internalizes their negative feelings and don't know how to share how they feel out or release some of these negative energies through some sort of activity. Some people like to play a sport. Some people like to do yoga, breathing exercising, meditating. Some people handle anger in numerous different ways. And it's good to find a good, positive way of releasing your anger where it doesn't hurt or affect you as an individual and others. And then it says here, anger is good. It's a strong emotion that builds up due to reality or images, imagined difficulties, or frustrating circumstances such as injustice. And this sort of goes back to the pushing. You felt like it was an injustice that the person pushed you, so you want to take it back at them. Or the road rage is another example of injustice. These are examples of how some sort of external stimuli, such as a road rage, or pushing or something, can cause a person to get upset and angry. And it depends also with what the circumstances is. Now, the next one is anger can occur due to stress, feeling guilty, shameful, disappointed, or failure. So, a lot of times when you're stressed out, some people tend to take it out on a soft target. Now, that's another example of how people, such as taking, you mad at your boss and you take it out on your spouse, or on your children. Those are examples of anger and how it can affect others. And then when you hurt your loved ones or someone you know or don't know, it could be someone you don't know, you start to feel guilty and feel bad because you know it was wrong, and then shameful and disappointed in yourself because you didn't intend to hurt the other person or upset them, in form or shape or fashion. And then the other one is feeling failure because you did not identify the anger and wasn't able to cope and alleviate it prior to the negative action taking place. But let's go into the next slide. And it says here, physical anger symptoms. It's very important to identify the symptoms because sometimes we can feel the symptoms before we even know that we're angry. And sometimes, knowing the symptoms, you go, hey, I'm upset about this. Let me calm myself down. But let's look at this. It says clenching jaw, grinding teeth, headaches, upset, increased rapid heart rate, sweating, especially in the palms of hand, heat sensation on neck and face, shaking, and dizziness. These are some of these physical symptoms when it comes to anger. And it's good to identify what they are, because sometimes that can get you to stop and think twice about doing something. Another thing also is you got to take into consideration when you're constantly angry all the time and you have all these symptoms, it can lead to health issues. Other health issues. It's already been proven that stress can cause heart attacks and also strokes. So it's very important to have more control over your anger and learn to how better techniques and strategies on how to calm yourself and how to intervene and how to make better decisions in order to avoid these situations. So let's go on to the next one. And it says here the positive side of anger. Believe it or not, y'all, anger can be very positive. It can have some positive parts too. And I'm going to tell you how. It says here, anger can be used for motivation. And let's say, for example, you failed your test and you was upset about it because you needed to pass that test and you failed it. So you were upset and you were very angry. So what happened was it pushed you to work even harder and go for it even harder because you want to make that A. You want to make an A or a B or something like that. You want to pass and get your GPA up. So you're going to work harder and put more forth an effort to do better. So that's an example of how it can motivate you. Anger can enable change. And this is another example. These two go hand in hand. When you're angry, you feel motivated to study harder. And since you study harder, you bring about the change. You score a higher test score on your test. And you pass your class. So see, those are examples of how it can go hand in hand with these positive aspects of anger. Another thing is that it can enable a person to assert themselves. So if a person is very introverted or somebody who internalizes their feelings a lot, they have been going through things such as, bully. For example, you might have a bully and someone's constantly bullying you. You've been internalizing your feelings because you've been trying to avoid confrontation, but one day they just hurt you to the core, to the point where you don't have no other choice but to come back and hit them back, and or protect yourself, or maybe you had to speak up for yourself and go back off on them, or maybe you had the courage to go to a teacher or let somebody else know, to assert yourself and let people know that this person's hurting you or you're upset about something. See, this is an example of how you're asserting yourself. You're letting know that, hey, I am a person. I have feelings too. So it doesn't necessarily mean hitting and fighting. It can also be just taking the time to speak up and to let people know, hey, I want to stop. I don't like what's going on here. Putting your foot down. That's an example of asserting yourself. Another thing is anger enables a person to defend themselves from abusive situation. That's why I was saying right here, this is these two sort of go hand in hand, asserting yourself and defending yourself. Those two are sort of saying, once you assert yourself, you're defending yourself, or once you defend yourself, you're asserting yourself. So these two sort of go hand in hand. If a person is verbally abusive, you speak up. Hey, I don't, and you defending yourself. Or someone's pushing and shoving, you say, oh, you're not going to continue to push and shove me, defending myself. Or letting people know what's going on. Sometimes you got to let a person know and asserting yourself that way and defending yourself that way as well. So these are some of the examples of how it can be positive. Another one is anger allows a person to become self-aware and know when something is not right and is wrong. Sometimes you don't realize it's wrong. Sometimes you gotta get angry to the point that, hey, I don't like this, and you put your foot down. I don't like what's going on. I need to put my foot down on this. This is an example of anger. How a person becomes aware. So sometimes you might have grown up in an environment where you thought it was all right, but then you got a chance to see from the other side, or you start to get older and more mature, you realize, hey, this is wrong. you start to assert yourself and say, hey, I don't want to go through this no more. So these are examples of how it can be positive and it can bring about change. Let's go to the next slide. So now we're going to do an overview and highlight what we just discussed. It says here, our anger is oftentimes used to hurt others and oneself. And that's true. Sometimes, you internalize your feelings and anger, and that's when you hurt yourself. And then it comes out in the explosive episode to the point where you're hurting others and you start to explode, literally. And we discussed that. And then the anger can cause aggression. How we talked about it can cause you to come lash, like we said, getting upset. And we used an example about Medea, how she cut in front of her, gets mad at the driver for taking her parking spot. And, you watch that movie, you'll see, and she ended up going to jail. So aggression does cause aggression. And then anger can enable strength. That's when you feel empowered to make a difference. That can be a positive thing. That's when you realize sometimes you got to get angry enough to make a difference and change things. If you don't like the way things are going in life, sometimes you have to bring about change through anger. You go, hey, I'm tired. I don't like this no more. I'm angry. Let me fix this situation. Then anger can be a reaction of fearful thinking or beliefs. And that's true. How you grew up and your environment can also affect how you believe and see things. And reactions can be a learned behavior, like I said, how you brought up and were raised, or just being around certain people in the environment can also be a learned behavior. And sometimes, yeah, that can bring around anger as well. And it can be cultural as well. Culture can also have an impact as well. And then anger can be positive and negative. And this is the conclusion of the this particular free lesson, on the anger management course. And like I said, please join me on the next video.